Welcome to The Art of Being Unstoppable, the podcast where women from every walk of life come together to break barriers, embrace their power, and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Vicki McDougall, and each week we explore inspiring stories, actionable strategies, and empowering conversations to help you step into your confidence, amplify your voice, and create a life without limits. No matter where you are on your journey, this is your space to grow, thrive, and become unstoppable. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. This is a bonus episode that we're recording today with Dorothy O'Dell. Welcome, Dorothy.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Vicki.
I'm so
I
happy you're
absolutely love
here.
it being
Yes. Dorothy and I have been actually connecting a little bit more than just on this podcast. I was on her podcast, as well as we are both unstoppable women who have that in common. And we're both from like the same area, which is crazy. That we are both, we all those things check. May being Mental Health Awareness Month is something that is, I am sure, very close to many people's hearts. And mental health is something that many people suffer from. And so I had decided that this month would be a great month to add extra episodes. And Dorothy and I are going to be talking about something very close to both of our hearts. And I just want to let you know that we will be talking about something that could be triggering to others. So if that is the fact, please know that we're not here to do that. We're here to hopefully support and show people that we are people that you can talk to. And if we aren't those people, we definitely know someone that can. I will be dropping a link in the show notes as well, how to get a hold of Dorothy and myself. But also, I will be dropping a link for a hotline that you can call if you feel like you're in any trouble or danger. So, or if you know someone that is. So, that being said, we will be talking about suicide today. And I know that it's not an easy topic. I know I've had people in my life who have committed suicide and have tried to commit suicide, and it's been something that I didn't understand for quite some time. And I think that once I got a little bit older and I definitely dealt with it in my own family, it kind of showed me something a little bit different. But Dorothy, I'd like to welcome you once again, and I'd like for you just to share a little bit about who you are and what you do with our audience.
All right. Well, I'm Dorothy O'Dell. I am the host of the Unstoppable Network and Between the Sheets, What Lies Between the Pages podcast. Uh, the second one's a what do you call that? Passion project. There we go. Passion project. Because I talk a lot about mental health. And it's funny because I didn't know this is what we were going to talk about today. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, the show is focused mostly on veterans, survivors, and trailblazers sharing their story of turning their pain into power. Right. And so I believe everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've overcome a lot in life: bullying, low self-esteem, abusive relationships, and the suicide of my uncle. Um, and so it's always just like putting one foot in front of the other and not really realizing that you're just living in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when something tragic happens, it's like, you don't have time to even deal with it. You just, go through the motions. And unfortunately, my uncle decided on Christmas Day 30 years ago that life was just too hard and he was not going to stay with us. Um, and his story is, we actually didn't find him though until March of the following year. So he was in Wallaceburg, Ontario, and we were all living there at the same time. He had his own apartment, and he had gone through some hard times. He had gotten divorced, but still very much loved his wife and loved his kids and things like that. But I truly believe he had a long history of mental health, up until that point, and so it was just, for him, one struggle after the other, and he just decided that enough was enough. He had attempted it once before, and my dad had found him just in time. Rushed him to the hospital, did the whole charcoal, pumped stomachs, things like that. If I'm being too graphic, let me know.
No, no, no.
Um, and so it was. Thank God my dad did find him in time. But the second time, he made sure that none of us could find him. Um, he had spent some time up in the Chatham Hospital as well, up in the psych ward, after his first attempt. And we brought him into our house for a little bit too, just so that we could keep a closer eye on him,
Mhm,
see how he's doing. Um, but it was his choice that he didn't want to stay here. Um, and once that happened, it was, like, kinda devastating for us, like, my grandparents were never the same afterwards, um, and I grew up where kids were to be seen and not heard, so even though I was in my early 20s,
mhm.
when that happened, it was still one of those things where you don't talk about it, right? We just kinda, like,
Oh,
shoved it under the
mhm.
carpet. You were expected to just not just deal with it your
Mhm.
own way,
Yep.
and you just sucked it up,
Mhm.
basically. Um, and now, though, I have the distinct honor and privilege of talking with veterans every day, pretty much. Um, and when I found out that 22 veterans a day died by suicide, I was mortified and thinking, how can we change that? I had another uncle that was in the Canadian Armed Forces, and you know, I did not know that those were some of the struggles that they had faced. I had no idea. It's not something I didn't even get a chance to talk to him about that. Actually, he died in his early 50s of a heart attack. But when it was funny because I'm doing all this work with mental health and with people and in the military, out of the military, and I'm just like, man, like what is it? But that's the legacy that my family left me, right? It's military and mental health. So here we go. You put the two together,
Right.
and
A
that's where I'm at.
and I know that, we've talked about this before, but I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, not that we always know the reason, like you said, like, that was when you were young and younger, like, 30 years ago. I mean, goodness, like, you were in your early 20s, your adult life was kinda beginning, and how did that affect you? Like, how did that being seen and not heard, was the way of our families, like our parents and in our generation. And it was that way. I was an only child, so I was very close to my mom. So we weren't quite, but when we were in a bigger crowd, like a bigger group of the family, then it would be a little bit more. The kids would kind of go do their thing and the adults would be together. And I do remember a lot of times, cousins not knowing what they were allowed to say and do because that's just how it was. So, how did you get through? Like, did you have someone to help you? Did you talk about that? Like, how did you help yourself get through that, or did you get help from someone?
Actually, honestly, I back then had no idea that there was help that you could get,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so it's not something that they talked about remotely even back then.
Mhm.
It's not like we were given. I remember the day that the police officers came to our house, and they wanted my dad to identify the body. Well, this is 3 months later, and he had been in the marsh. So I'm like, "No." My mom says, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Well, how can we identify the body?" And my dad says he's got a tattoo above his heart with his ex-wife's name on it, and sure enough, that was him. And so it was, it was it was kinda devastating, but at the same time, it was like I've always taught or I learned at a very young age just to keep going
Right.
and not
Mhm.
ask questions, right? Just you're gonna I don't know any other way really, Vicky, to describe it other than just you just kept going.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I had no idea how much it affected me until, um, 10 years later, I was in women's Bible study, and they said, the first thing you talk about is your uncle. And I was like, really? I had no idea that that was the first thing I talk about. Um, and so 10 years later, I got help. I in
Yeah.
the church that I was involved in at that time, they had some different therapy modalities that I had access to. And so 10 years later, I got help. But during those 10 years, it was just like, um, just sucked it up and kept going.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think anger was a lot. Like, I went through the motions. Like, my uncle had a good relationship, but he was kind of weird. I can say that. He was kind of weird. And so I loved him, but I with his and sometimes he would like when I say act weird, he would just like do like wet willies. Like I'm
Yeah.
sitting in the car in the front seat and my dad's driving and he's behind me and he put like wet willy
Yeah.
in my ear. And I'm like, can you stop that? So he would drive me crazy a little bit doing stuff like that. But it was, and he was very much he would keep to himself, um, and he was I don't know, he was growing up, he was a daredevil, and he was told at a young age that he would be in a wheelchair or dead before he's 42, because some of the stunts that he had pulled, like they lived in Kingsville, when he was young, and so he went flying over this pole. I don't know how they did it, but they were doing some kind of stunts, and he flew over this pole and thought he was flying. He had a cape on, thought he was flying, things like that. And so, because of that and several car accidents and things like
Yeah.
that, my dad had said, yeah, that he was told at a very young age that he would be in a wheelchair or dead. And I think that played with his mind a
Mhm.
lot because he ended up killing himself at I think it was 42, or just before his 42nd birthday. And so it was, he kind of had like a dark side to him.
Mhm.
He would think nothing of just driving off to Chicago for a coffee.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
My uncle does that, right?
Wow.
And so he very much a loner, type thing. I mean, he had one of his oldest son lived with him for a while. Um, but, some things happened with that son too. And it was just, if I ever talked to my dad the way his son talked to him, I think I would probably be beaten. Let's just say that. And so, but my uncle took it because he was
Mhm.
just, I don't know,
Broken.
maybe he just thought that, yeah, he just had, I don't think he had very good self esteem. And especially after the divorce with his ex wife, I think that played on him as
Mhm.
well. And I think he had done some things in his early years that had played on him. We all do things in life,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And I think that bringing that up is so very important because what I hear you saying as well is, he was told that. He was told from a young age, you won't, right? Like you will be dead or crippled by the time you're 42 because of the way, and that number is just a number. But to him, he held on to that. And that's where I think we forget the things that have happened to us in our lives that we haven't dealt with that just seem like it's not a big deal. I remember telling my daughter, which my first son was just the easiest child to get to deal with. He was just so easy. He never gave me an ounce of trouble until he was like 18. But my second child, she cried. She wanted me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That child wanted to be on me. I mean, she's still like that. You know what I mean? And she's 32 years old,
yeah,
but no, but I remember saying to her when she was little, like, I'm going to sell you to the gypsies, right? Like, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know, and now I think like how that affected her, like I was going to get rid of her. And her relationship with me, we've always been super close, but she had a different relationship with her father. She looking for that love all the time. It was, you know what I mean? Like so you ask yourself these questions of when we talk to people, what they hold on to, especially if there's mental health issues there, because they don't really, the reality, right? And
yeah,
it's such a suicide is such a, unless you've lived through someone that has either committed suicide or, you may have yourself tried to commit suicide. Um, it's definitely a place of darkness, I think, and they think that that's the only way that they can see the light. Um, I know my third child, she was bullied in high school, like really bad. And she went to work one night and she worked in a little town, like, 20 minutes from here at Tim Hortons. And she ended up taking pills. And as soon as she took them, she, they called the ambulance and they called me and all she could say was, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And the guilt for the people that are left behind, the guilt, I was like, you can't, like, what, right? And I drove to Chatham and I was like at the hospital and all she could do was cry. And I just wanted to hold her and love her and show her, like, there is nothing you can't talk about with us. Like, I was devastated that she felt like there was something there that she couldn't deal with or live with. And I look at her now and she's
Right.
this beautiful soul with two beautiful babies. She's married. She's on this road of recovery in this beautiful way. She's lost a lot of weight and she's really working on herself and loving herself. And I think a lot of that is part of why we get stuck in where we are sometimes. Right? We beat ourselves up and we
Yes.
hold on to those past things that have been maybe said to us when we were younger. And we don't even realize that that's why we're feeling the way we're feeling, or we don't even sometimes remember it until it's brought to light. So, I mean,
Right.
speaking to people who I've known that have tried to commit suicide or that, before they had and then they did, it's something that changes every single person that is involved in that, not just the person that has done it. It can be a ripple effect that goes far and wide, which if
Well, I heard,
20 years later, the first thing that you shared at a church Bible study was about your uncle, that was something that you were holding on to subconsciously. You didn't know you were, but because
right.
you never went through any steps to heal, you didn't like, you didn't know how.
Yeah. And then you go through the anger, right?
Mhm.
And then you go through all those emotions. And there's one thing I want to say. I did a mental health walk last year at the here in Windsor, and there was a statistic that 300 people are affected by one person's suicide. Well, I think the numbers are higher than that
Yes.
because in that walk, there was I'm willing to talk to anybody, and I put my foot in the mouth at this walk. I saw all these shirts that says something about grace. So I walked up to one of the guy that had the shirt on, and I'm like, I just want to ask. There's so many shirts here with Grace's name on it. Can I just ask, who Grace is? Well, it was his daughter. And I was just floored because there had to have been at least 400 shirts with Grace's name on it, walking on her behalf. And I didn't get the whole story, and that's fine. But I mean, she must have been a teenager, and just couldn't take it, the pressures of life, and I just think it's so tragic, you know. Um, I also had when I was dating somebody, I want to say 20 years ago, his niece completed suicide. And I was there through that too, and got the call, and I was like working on the other side of the fence, and and that was said she was 15 years old,
Mm.
and she had been being bullied. She had acne really bad, sh- and make a long story short, it's not my story to tell, but
Yeah,
she had been on some medication and with that medication, though, you have to go to a psychiatrist. Well, she knew what to say to the psychiatrist to,
yeah,
have them keep on giving her the information. And so, yeah, she waited till her grandparents were out of town, her parents were at work, and she actually died at home. But I was thinking, like, how beautiful young girl, um, and for to be bullied to the point where
Mhm.
she just wanted to end her life. Like, I think that is so sad.
Mhm.
Um,
And
you know, and so
how is that even, like that it bothers me so much to think that you can be someone can make you feel that way,
yeah,
right? Like someone is that
yeah,
mean. And what they're going through as well, because they're not just mean to be mean. There's something there as well, right? Like people are going through things, they lash out, hurting people hurt people. We know this.
sure, yeah,
And it's that's where it comes down to this difficult understanding of the whys. And I'm a very much I need a who, what, when, where, why kind of person. And when it comes to mental health, there is none of that. Right? We
no,
can't answer
exactly,
all of the questions, unfortunately, but we can put that message out there that you're never alone. Someone else has had to endure what you're enduring. And I think that that's
yes,
important for these young children, even older. It doesn't matter what age you are. I think you need to always know that there's a community, there's people that will be there. They will help you. They will support you. They will love you through this because that feeling of being all alone is got to be something that's tragic in itself.
mhm, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been times in my life where I felt completely alone too, and I really had to dig deep to get through those moments. Um, that was back when I didn't have the friends that I have now. Um, and I thought I had completely messed up in life and thought, okay, you know, just drive towards the nearest tree and everything will be fine and taken care of. Um, but then I'm like, okay, that's I would never do that to my nephews because I was very angry at my uncle for doing that, right?
Yeah.
And when my brother gave me my nephews, I was just like, okay, so I'm here to help him with them. And I actually got a picture taken of the two little buggers when they were young. And every time was feeling like I was having a bad day, I would take that picture out and look at it.
Mhm.
And I have the picture still. It's in my drawer behind me. But when I look at that picture, I'm like, there's just no way that I can leave this earth.
Mhm.
Because they are what grounded me. So if you are going through that, think of something that will ground you and just hold on to that image until you get through it. Or call 988.
Yes,
Right. Because
absolutely.
988 is universal here in Canada and the
Oh,
US.
it is. Okay, I
So
wasn't
if,
sure. That's why I didn't mention. I
yes,
wasn't sure if it
yes,
was.
yeah,
Thank you for that
yeah, yeah,
clarification.
it is. Absolutely. Because I was so ecstatic that finally Canada and US come on board with something together.
Yes,
So it is the same number,
that's
universal.
awesome too.
Um, so
Now,
I mean,
in your you
we're covering
must
something.
this must be something that you deal with a lot when you're speaking with veterans and with people going through what they're going through in your Unstoppable network. I mean, and to walk, and I think that's very important too, to take that and walk and do that walk for people that have endured that or as much as you have as well. Um, and bringing awareness to this mental health is so important. We need more people to know that they can talk about where they are and what they need. We do. We need to let
Yes.
them know they're safe. They can speak about it. They can reach out for help. 988 is there for a reason, you know? So, how does that, like, you went through that and now you talk to people about that and you help them and you are an advocate for that. How that's something to be said. And how do you get through that? Like, how do you do that for yourself? Because it is an inner work that you need to do to be able to help someone else when you've been through something like that.
Yeah, you really need to. And self-care was never one something that I did for myself. It wasn't until my dad got diagnosed with cancer and I actually got a social worker. Um, and I spilled 40 years of my guts to this woman, uh, that I she's and the first thing she asked me was like, "What's your self-care like?" And I'm like, "There it's non-existent. I take care of everybody else but me." I was just got engaged. My dad just got cancer. I work in a high stress industry during the day. I'm like, there's no way that I have time for myself. Have a like I said, a man at home, and I wasn't married then, and a stepson. But she said, if you don't start taking care of yourself, you're gonna die of stress before your dad dies of cancer. And so when dealing with that, I mean, there's still times that I burn out. I'm not gonna lie, but
Well, you're
I've
human.
learned that
You are living a human experience.
I am living a human experience, and I wanna the thing of it is I wanna help way too many people.
Mhm.
And so I will never I have a hard time saying no, but it's now become part of my vocabulary, especially now that, later years where women now start putting themselves first. But yeah, if I hear these stories, from these men and women that have experienced, either great loss or seen, their brothers and sisters get blown up in front of them. That's you just really I'm not a social worker,
Yep,
and I do have a network
yep,
of people that if it's something like that, then I definitely send them to the experts,
yep,
right?
absolutely.
But I do coach people, if they want it. And just share. There's really 7 steps that I have used to become the overcomer, right? And so in that is just really, you got to take a look at yourself. You got to take a look deep inside. See, we have all these, what is it, 10,000 thoughts a minute
Yeah,
or whatever. I don't know. There's
it's high.
some
Yeah.
huge
Mhm.
statistic, right, out there. And not all, and I've heard that 80% of them are negative unless you train your mind
Uh-huh.
to do it
Yeah,
something different.
yeah,
And so we have all these subconscious thoughts, but why don't we bring it consciously in and work on those thoughts? Because what you said earlier, Vicky, is if you feel alone and you feel like you're going through something, you can talk yourself into anything.
yeah,
So why not talk yourself into doing something great or thinking something great about yourself
yeah,
instead of thinking of the positive or the negative of life,
yeah.
right? And so,
And that's a practice all
there's
on
just
its own. Like, that is a practice all on
well,
its
yeah.
own, for sure.
Right, and it doesn't come natural, trust
Mm-mm,
me, because I
mm-mm. It does.
growing up with a larger body and being bullied for that larger body, I have put this body down almost my entire life,
Yep,
except for the last couple of years, I've really learned to accept myself and, you know, um, there is I have tried basically everything to try and get it off. And right now, the hormones are not balanced. So, I'm working on different things with my medical team and things like that. But people have this perception of what a woman should look like, be like, act like, talk like. And if you're not that, then you don't fit society's norm,
mhm.
right? Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm breaking all the barriers for the norms.
I'm with
And
you,
you can
girl.
do anything in a larger size body that you can do in a smaller body,
Yep,
and you can do it better. And the funny thing is, I always said I wanted to be the next Oprah, but the funny thing is, it doesn't matter who you are, it's how you look at yourself.
mhm.
If you feel that way, that confident, and
Yes.
you keep going. And life is like this. So you're confident 1 minute and then you take a nosedive. So then you get yourself back up and then you take a nosedive.
Mhm.
To me, that's how my life has been.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's not always going to be a flat line, but the quicker you get those thoughts under control, the quicker, you can turn your story around.
absolutely. And again, I've always been a plus size girl, and but I think my mom. I remember my mom saying to me the only time she ever saw me not stand tall in who I was my grade 8 graduation. That was because I had heels on for the first time. So I was like, being smaller than everybody because I was always the tallest one in the class and da da da. But It takes a lot and it takes a lot of practice, but those downs is when the unstoppable kicks in. It's not when we're up here. It's not when we're up here. Being unstoppable is when we're down here. And it's when we're in this valley and saying to ourselves, I don't know what to do. That's when you get to say, okay, who can I ask for help from? What can I, and having I have a very specific way of doing things when I'm feeling in that place. And I can catch myself much quicker, but I'm more self aware. That's what gets me out of it. And I'm not saying I don't feel it because I do. I feel it and I have mental health. I have depression and I do take medicine for that. But I also do other things to keep myself here rather than staying down here too, because I don't want to be down
Mm.
here. I believe that life is meant to be lived and growth is part of that. And to be able to share that with as many people as I can through this podcast, through my
Yes.
coaching, whatever I'm choosing to do, I know that this life is beautiful and we get to live it. So if we can help people who are struggling with that, who are being bullied or feeling like they're not enough, that's I think it's a disservice if we don't do that. Myself, that's how I feel. I feel like it's a
Mhm.
disservice because I know what it feels like, and I'm not going to let someone else feel like that if I can help it.
Exactly. Exactly. And what do you get out of it really by putting somebody down? What do you get out of it? Like, I don't understand that.
No.
I mean, there's been times I've been upset with different
Oh,
people,
for
but that
sure.
doesn't mean that I put them down. That just means, like this morning, the lovely man behind me in the black Ram who wanted to ride my butt all the way down the East Row Expressway and then flip me off, even though I was in the hammer lane and I was doing like a good clip and I was waiting for someone to go over. But he was just like coming up onto me. And after I waved at him, I sent him love because I really wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
But I mean, what kind of person is it that you're just that angry that you're riding somebody's butt that you don't know just so that you can get up the road so you can slam on the brakes because there's construction at Manning Road?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But that's the
sorry,
thing,
that was
right?
my
We
little
never
rant.
know what's going on in somebody else's life. And that's
Yeah.
the blessing and the curse for working on ourselves. You learning about self-love and you
Yeah.
learning about how to take care of you first, because when you take care of you first, there's not a lot of room for all of that negativity. So those a lot of the
Yeah.
times people don't know. And that's the
Yeah.
sad part. And I mean, I know when I started on this journey myself, my mental health has improved so much since I realized how important self-love was. I can't even tell you. And the ripple effect in my family has been the most beautiful thing in all of my kids and my friends and even my husband who, you know, is a man. And no offense to any men listening, because I love you, but my husband can be a more of a negative. He's the, no, pessimist. I shouldn't say negative. He's more of a pessimist and I'm more of an optimist. And it's okay. And I love him for where he's at because it's not his fault. He is who he is. He has to work on that. It's not like it's got nothing to do with me. Right. So, and I think with
Amen.
mental health,
Amen.
again, the work, I always say choose your heart. If I'm going to be depressed and I say I am depressed, then depression, that is what I'm naming myself. My mind, my body, it doesn't know the difference. Right. So that's
Yep.
why I know I've heard Mel Robbins say, I know I've heard many people say, no, you aren't depressed. You have the feeling of depression, or I have the feeling of anxiety or not enough, but you aren't that person. And I think that that's very
That's right.
important for people to hear as well, is you're not defined by your diagnosis.
Nope. Nope.
So, you can,
Absolutely not.
sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, I love that you said that. I hear this from my mentor. You're not your body,
Yeah,
right? And so your body could be going through something, but that doesn't mean that you are your body. And I had to really step back and take a like, what does that mean? Because in if we were to say that to our parents, they would like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
are you on crack or something? Because that's not something that, people are familiar with. But I absolutely love that you said that. Like, your words have power.
Mhm.
So instead of like, catch those negative
Yeah.
words and then quickly change them to something positive
Yeah.
and start doing something that you love again. Like,
Yes.
when was the last time that you did something A for
Yeah.
you and B something that you absolutely love?
That brought joy.
Um,
Bring joy. It could be something
right.
so
Like,
simple. It doesn't have to cost a dime. Just bring joy to your life.
that's right. Go for a walk.
Mhm.
Have a date night with your spouse.
Yeah.
Go to a concert. By the way, if you were at the 3 Days Grace concert, that was a freaking amazing. Uh,
I saw you were there. That's awesome. I did that. And
uh,
I think um there's so much stigma around mental health that needs to end. And again, the only way for things to change is for people to be vocal, to step up and say what you do not agree with. No, you're not defined by your diagnosis. You are not. I hate labels more than anything, and I've never
mhm,
liked them. My oldest son, and I wanted to kind of put this in here because I know we're wrapping up. We're already a little bit in, but my oldest son was an addict and suffered from mental health as well because, right, the drugs, the this, the that, ADHD as well. A lot of different things that had gone on in his mind and his being. And he's been clean 10 years. And I'm telling you the difference. Like, I saw him as that little boy the entire time. I never saw him as the addict. I couldn't bring myself to that. But I did have to walk away and allow him to go through what he needed to go through to find where he could come from, that bottom. But
mhm,
the mental health struggle was real for him as well. And that's another thing that we see. And I read something the other day online about these homeless people and these people that are on our streets. And that happens in every city across the world, I feel. I know in Canada it's huge, and I know in
mhm.
the States it is. And we don't know what's going on in their lives. And where are they supposed to go and get help? What are they supposed to do? Why are we like there's what are we like it's this constant, like, right? It's this constant
Mhm.
hamster wheel, I feel like, as they get clean and then they start because they have nowhere to go and then they don't have any help, and it's just sad. It just saddens me so much. My son had the
Yeah,
opportunity to get clean and then rebuild his life. And he did that. And it wasn't easy. But he did it, and he's got he's very strong in his convictions about what he believes in and how he handles things now. And he's very honest
right.
in where he came from, right? But family was the most important thing to him. And that's what got him through, I believe. But what about those people that don't have any of that, right?
That is very sad and very unfortunate. And I've talked to a lot of people that help our homeless here, especially in Windsor, and some of them they just fell on hard times, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're on the streets, right?
Yeah.
Some people it is a drug addiction or alcohol addiction,
Yeah.
but not all of them are.
Uh,
And it's yes, we have a shelter, we have street help. We have a bunch of different
yeah.
organizations here, but they all rely on funding.
That's right.
And right now, with the way that the economy is, and I know funding has gone down over the
Mhm.
years, um, and it's I, I when it's freezing outside, I'm like, I say to my husband, I'm like, I wish we had, more money that we could help these people, put them up in a hotel or something
I
like that,
know.
or make us. We have a huge backyard. I I want to like make tiny homes, but then I'm like, well, my husband is an extreme introvert and would never go for that.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, like, that's who I am, and I always wanna help, but what is the solution? People were saying, "Oh, make this, the old Sears,
The home.
into
I heard them.
apartments for them," and things like that. And then, people are saying, "No, you don't want the homeless in at the mall, right? And you don't want them downtown. You don't want them at the mall. Well, we got to do something. Like
Um,
they're somebody's child, right? Somebody's son or
Father,
daughter or
brother,
something like
sister,
that.
yes.
Ex
Yes.
exactly. And so my thing is, if I have extra groceries, it goes right to the street. All the clothes that, that I want to get rid of, it goes down right to the street. Um, that is one way in how I help, but I don't know what our solution is
Uh-uh.
to
I know.
end the homeless problem. That's one of the things I want to do, but I don't, they had a couple years ago they had there was supposed to be an influx of cash where they were making these tiny homes, and then they were just trying to find the land to do it. Um, his name was Dave. Dave, I forget Dave's last name, but he was part of this project, and I'm not sure where that ended up. I don't know if that even still
Yeah.
exists today, but it's too bad. I really believe that we should do more, um, and find shelter. But then, some people don't want help,
Mm-mm.
and that's to me the most heart wrenching thing
Yeah.
because I know so many times, you get somebody help and then they don't want it,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And
and
that's true. That happens
that's
all
how
the
they're
time.
used to living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
so what is the solution? I don't know, um, but I would really love to see. It was 2 weeks ago, for the first time ever, I live by the expressway, and there was a tent under the expressway down off my street, and I'm like, "That's the first time I've seen one there," and I was just like, "Oh my goodness," now we don't live close to downtown, but I'm like, when is this gonna end? Like, when is our city gonna do
I
something?"
know. It's just it's terrible. And a lot of mental health stems from trauma from when they were younger. And
Mhm,
that is same with addiction, right? It's this vicious circle. And
yeah,
I know that sitting here, I can do what I can do, and I do try. I do many things to help, but my my want is to spread the word. And I say that with this podcast, I want to help women see what's possible. And I think that we can change the world. And I always say one woman at a time, because with women, we can get together and we can form a community of like minded people that want to do things and devote time to each thing and do whatever we can. And I know you're doing that with the veterans and such. And I'm very happy to know you and to know that you're doing something to do that to help. And I do want you to continue to take care of you as well.
of course, of course.
Right? Because at the end of the day,
Listen,
we need to take care of ourselves, friends. And that's, I think, part of what we've been talking about here with mental health or anything. We need to take care of
yeah.
ourselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I do is I like to read.
Yep.
So I get my books out and I start reading,
Yep.
and that is what I do to get.
Yep.
It's like my escape from my reality,
Yeah.
right? Um, Talking to other people actually helped me too because I'm
Yep.
like, and
Yep.
doing the podcast or, excuse me, being on other people's podcasts. That's to me is like l- brightens me up,
Yes, it's
gives me
community.
joy.
Yes, me too. Me too. Well, I thank you so much for
Yeah,
being here. I'm sure that this isn't the last time we're going to be together on a podcast. I have a feeling that we're going to be doing this
yeah.
again, 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 again.
Yes, 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 yes.
But thank you, Dorothy. And I
Thank
want
you.
everyone to know that if you are struggling, if you know someone that is struggling, please reach out. 988 is the number that you can call. Both Dorothy and I will have our information in the show notes. You know how to get a hold of us, and we can pass along your information or pass you along to someone that can help you. We do both have a very big network of people that we know and we keep in touch with to help people that we can't help. So know that you're never alone. And that is one of the most important things I want you to hear. If you hear nothing else, is know that you're not alone. We're here for you and we will help. So, on that note, I will say thank you again to Dorothy, and everyone have yourselves a beautiful
Thank you.
day. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. Remember, your story matters, your voice matters, and your power is limitless. If you love today's conversation, subscribe, share it with the women in your life, and leave a review to help more women discover their unstoppable selves. I'm Vicki McDougall, and I'll see you in the next episode, because your journey to unstoppable starts now.